family stories they pay you for that. Now, okay, it was fun in that bookstore. I had a guy to come in there one day, and I showed him how to make money selling books at half a cover price. And he went off and started a bookstore chain called Half Price Bookstores. Guy named Ken Jimmery. Yeah, I showed Ken how to get books for 50 cents a piece and sell them for half a cover price. And now they in like 45 states, and they might be doing $1 billion a year now. Says, man, I should have kept that idea. Should have kept that to myself. You know. So, I just really like the fact that my family has made such a contribution to the making of Dallas and to the making of America. So I spent basically the latter part of my life collecting all these stories and listening to people traveling around the country and doing genealogy workshops, because the #1 show on public television now is Henry Louis Gates. Yes, comes on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, and then comes on Sundays at 10 o'clock. So, I always watch it, and because, I got a chance to hang out with Henry Louis Gates a little bit, and people who do genealogy, we start telling ghost stories, because when you start tracing your family, you start meeting people that are connected, and you find out that we all cousins, that we all connected. It's like being at a family reunion, and you say, "What you doing here?" And they say, "Well, I'm here with my cousin." "Your cousin? Girl, you didn't tell us you was cousins." Oh, y'all know that story. So, genealogy is really very special to me, because I meet a lot of religious people, and they tell me they read the Bible. And I explain to them that the Bible is a workbook. And I said, the Bible's a workbook, huh? And he said, well, yeah. I said, well, did you do the first chapter? And they say, well, I read it. I said, no. No, it's a workbook. Did you work what's the first chapter? Genesis, genealogy. Yeah, genealogy, tracing your family. Who are you connected to? You see, that's like a doctor who says, well, I'm going to operate on your heart, but I just jumped right over the first chapter. So you say, well, your surgery is shaky if you ain't done so don't tell me about what's in chapter 32 in the Bible and you ain't done chapter 1. You see. So you got to connect, because one day your children or your grandchildren will ask you something about who they are and where they're from. And, you have to tell them, well, one day me and your granddaddy, we was walking through the watermelon patch, and I stepped on a seed, and the next thing you know, there you were. That kind of, that a stalk brought you. See, and stalks only bring one thing, is what? Baby stalks. They don't bring they don't drop little children. But that's why we have to be true to our genealogy, true to who we are. And when you start doing that, it gives you such a confidence. So talk a little bit about some of the work that I've done. And, being the first black family in Dallas, I really get a sense of pride when I come down and talk to people who make the city work and people who make the county work. Because, see, Dallas used to be 3 separate cities. See, Dallas was a city. Cedar Springs out here, that was a city. And what's known as Hoard's Ridge, up where the zoo is, That's where Captain Horde set up on that, y'all know the zoo on that hill up there? That was Horde's Ridge. It was named Oak Cliff by a man named T.L. Marcellus. Because if you ever go up by the zoo, you see those white cliffs. See that, those white there, well, that's how it became Oak Cliff. And the guy that owned my family, his name was William Brown Miller. He owned, his plantation went from where you cross the Trinity River all the way up to where Interstate 35 is, back to Pleasant Run Road. That was his plantation. He was the largest landowner south of the Trinity River. The man who owned the largest plantation north of the Trinity River was a man named W.W. Caruth. His plantation was where, y'all know North Park Shopping Center? From where North Park, from the edge of downtown, here, all the way out to Forest Lane. That was the Caruth plantation. If you go out 75, you see Caruth Haven Road. All right, well, that was his slave quarters was where North Park Shopping Center is. It was there up until the 60s. So Caruth was the man on this side, and a little further west, that was owned by Webb. He built the first chapel out there, the first church. It's a road out there called Webb's Chapel. And a little further out is named for a black guy. He owned the water system. He sold the best water in town. His name was Henry Keller. It's a road out there called Keller Springs. Yeah, Mr. Keller was a black man who owned the water, and in his house, he had a white folks only room. So when white people would come to buy his water, they would sleep in a white only room. So he got rich selling white people water, and they felt better sleeping in a room than no black folks ever slept in. That was Keller Springs. The Keller family is still pretty prominent out in Fort North, Dallas. Now, Dallas had a strange beginning as far as blacks are concerned. In 1860, Dallas is the only city that was ever burned in a slave revolt. July 10th, 1860, Dallas was burned. Had two abolitionist ministers, McKinney and Blunt. They came in and they were preaching to, see, y'all have to understand 1860. 1860, you had the Lincoln-Douglas debates. They were debating on whether slave was going to be free, whether they were going to separate from the South was going to separate. So it was a lot of tensions going on in America in 1860. That was a very pivotal year in the American story. Now, see, the river, the Trinity River used to come up to where we are now. They brought a guy named Kessler in, and Kessler designed the levee system to push the river back, because in 1908, they had a flood in Dallas that got up to the second floors of the buildings here. So they brought Kessler in from St. Louis to redirect the Trinity River. They got a place over in Oak Cliff called Kessler Park. That's the name for Kessler. He put in and then in 1849, men started leaving here, going to the gold rush. And the lowest point in the river was Joe Record's crossing. Out here, they crossed the Trinity River, going west to California. It's a road out there called Record Crossing. All right, so that was Joe Record. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of these slides that I got. All right. Oh, all right. So this is the program, Your Roots and Where to Find Them. So if anybody is interested in genealogy, and you got questions and stuff, we do have a genealogy group. We meet the third Saturday out of every month down at the Dallas Public Library. And so this is my certificate of ancestry. Channel 8 paid for me to take the DNA test to find out where my DNA was. And so I found out we're members of the Bamalike tribe from the Cameroon. So this is where we came from in Africa, up at the Cameroon. Members of the Bamalike tribe. And they always, whenever I meet people from the Cameroon, say that they were the businessmen of Africa. Also, they were involved in the slave trade. You had a lot of Africans who sold, but in Africa, they had slavery. But it was slavery that you could work your way up and out of. But in America, we had plantation slavery, which was you were going to be a slave for life, and your kids were going to be slaves for life, and their kids were going to be, see, it sounds like a long, long time ago, but if you know somebody that's 100 years old and they knew their grandparents, that's how close we are right out of pure slavery, you see. So don't get it confused that we've been out of slavery all these years, because sometimes that slave mentality run real deep, you know. So this is the ship, one of the ships that, the slave ships. This ship was operated by Sir John Hawkins. John Hawkins had a contract with a guy named King James. And King James helped to establish the Atlantic slave trade. Y'all know what else King James gave us? Yep. The same king that gave us. He was worked with John Hawkins. And when the black folks were calling on Jesus to come take us home, his ship was named the ship Jesus. Yeah, Jesus of Lubeck. So they were calling on the good ship Jesus to please come take us back home. So don't be fooled by King James. And these were the people, the first immigrants that came to America. And they're talking about the immigrants now, oh, stop these immigrants. We're a country of immigrants, you know? Yeah, you know, this was all belonged to somebody else. And my folks, William Brown Miller's people, they came over here, they were members of an outlaw group of people, a group of outlaws that were run out of Europe, a group of outlaws called Presbyterians. Yes, they found out, the king found out that the Presbyterians were praying without permission, praying out loud, and was talking about a new king called Jesus. And the king says, I'm the king. And he gave them the Episcopalian book of prayer and said, this is the book you gonna use, the Episcopalian. And they fell out with the king. King killed a lot of them, put a bunch of them on ships to send them over here to prison. See, America was a prison colony. And they were sending them over here, getting them out of that Scottish And this is when they would load us into the bottom of the slave ships. And what they would do is they would overload the ships. They had, if you had an order for 500, you put 800 in to allow for the sick and the diseased ones, or the ones that would die, or the ones that would jump overboard. And the sharks used to follow these ships, waiting for the bodies to be thrown overboard. And until this day, the shark swimming patterns are designed the way around what these years and years and years of eating off them slave ships. They still swim in the patterns that they had coming off of those slave ships. Imagine 800 people in the bottom of a ship and no bathrooms. Yes. So this is us coming to America. Now the bulk of us, if you're going to do your family history, you got to read about Orange County, Virginia. Orange County, Virginia was the largest county. They cut 5 states. They cut Michigan, Ohio, I think Indiana, but then there's 5 states they cut out of Orange County, Virginia. So if you're going to study your family history and you are interested in this, go and read. There's a newspaper called the Virginia Gazette. It was like the first national newspaper. It's called the Virginia Gazette. It might be online now, but it told about the ships' arrivals, who the captains were, where the ships came from, so you can pull up those Virginia Gazettes. Now, I was pretty fortunate. I found the Miller Family Bible from the 1700s. I read about it, and then somebody told me that it was in Alabama, and I went to Alabama looking for it, and then they said, no, it's in New Orleans. So then I went up drove from up to find this Bible, and it listed that Negroes in the family Bible. And you see up there, as far back as 1750, we were owned by this family. We stayed with the Miller family from the 1750s up until the 1950s. Yes, so that 1750 is important because by the mere fact that they have the month that this person was born means they had to have owned their parents to know what date and month, what year they were born. So that means they had to have owned their parents as far back as 1720 or 1730 to own them till they got to the point of being able to bear children. So we were in America 30 years before America was America. So don't tell me about being in America. Don't tell me about no immigration and all of that. You're an immigrant, you see. So this is one of the documents. Always look for them family Bibles, because in some cases, family Bibles are legal documents. See, and why this is important, this is like a tab. This lets you know how many slaves you own and how old they were. And this is a page from the Bible. And this guy is important. This guy is Clayton Miller. He was owned by the Millers as far back as 1830. This is Clayton. Clayton came to Dallas with William Brown Miller. Clayton's son, Henry Miller, was the first trial in the Old Red Courthouse, July 4th, 1892. That was Henry Miller. So, and this is slave dealers' headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia. This is when they bought and sold us. Because see, they would order us, people ordered their slaves according to what crops. They brought, if you owned a rice plantation, then you brought in Africans from the rice growing region. Or if you had cotton, you brought in Africans from the cotton regions of Africa. So, and what they would do is they would brand you or put a number on you to know what groups you went in. Anybody ever hear of a thing called the dozens? You know the dozens? Oh, I hate to talk about your mama. She's a, y'all know the dozens? Oh, your mama has so sharp you can roll it on a piece of rice. Yeah, well, that's the dozens. The dozens come from after they loaded the slaves off and sold them all of the damaged slaves or injured slaves, they'd put them in groups of 12. And they'd put them in the dozens. So you could, it was kind of like the discount slaves, you see. And so that's where people say, look now, I don't play the dozens. Don't put me in the dozens. You know, that means don't put me in with them injured or damaged ones. And this is the slave block in Fredericksburg. This is where they bought our folks from Fredericksburg. And just after the George Floyd incident, the people in Fredericksburg damaged this marker, and they pulled it up, so it's gone now as a result of the George Floyd incident. And here you see us fighting for America. He's fighting in the Virginia. Here black folks are fighting for freedom when what? Not free themselves, but fighting for America to be free. We fought in every war that America has ever had for freedom, we fought. Now imagine him walking past the slave market to go fight for America. This is the guy that owned my family. When they moved from Virginia, they moved to Kentucky. This guy, John Miller, Cassius Clay, Green Clay, and Henry Clay cut Kentucky County out of Virginia to make the state of Kentucky. Cassius Clay ended up being an abolitionist. He was a friend of Frederick Douglass. Y'all know whose family Cassius Clay owned? Muhammad Ali. Yeah, you know, his name was Cassius Clay. He was named after the great emancipator, Cassius Clay, and a guy named John G. Fee started the first co-ed integrated colleges in America. It's called Berea College in Berea, Kentucky. If you know people want to go, it's a tuition-free college started by the abolitionists. It's called Berea College. So if you got kids or you know somebody that want to go to a good school, they go, well, he lived down the street from John Miller. John Miller worked on the legislation to cut Kentucky out of Virginia. And this is his house. He found it in Richmond, Kentucky, back in 1798. I got a chance to go up to Kentucky to visit this house. And it's so funny. I went up there and I went in and introduced myself because this was the Chamber of Commerce house. And I told the guy I was from Texas. He says, from Texas? He says, I'm from Texas. I said, yeah. I said, what part? He said, Huntsville. And I said, what part of Huntsville? Because if you know Texas, if you know Huntsville, it got two parts of Huntsville, you know. And there was a window out on the side of this house, on this side. So I asked him, is it all right if I go put the window in? He said, yeah. So I went up to the lumber company and bought a window and a jar of DAP putty and came back and I fixed this window. And after I finished the window, I went into this little drive-in grocery, like a little 7-Eleven, and a lady in there said, you work for the city? I said, no. She said, you work for the county? I said, no. She said, well, we heard you was up there putting that window in the old Miller house, and we wanted to know why you was doing that. I said, well, my great-great-great-granddaddy built that house. And if he was still alive, he'd fix the window. He wouldn't let it rain. And so I just found out a few months ago they bulldozed that house down. Now, if you're doing genealogy, you go to the index of wills. You go look at the wills of the people who carry your name. Because in their wills, they gave their Negroes to their children. And they, in some cases, named them and also named their children. So they say, Negro girl Mamie and her son Sammy, age 4, and her daughter Della, age 2.5. So this way you could track them through wills, because they willed you like a possession. So this is the will to Alabama, because after they moved out of Kentucky, the next generation moved down to a place called Huntsville, Alabama, Madison County, Alabama. And they introduced cotton. They brought that cotton seed over from Africa and introduced cotton to Alabama, Madison County, Alabama. It's the mother county of Alabama. It was named after a guy named John Hunt. It was the first capital of Alabama. It's Huntsville. This is the old courthouse where you bought and sold slaves. And this is where they're selling Negroes for cash. You could loan money on your Negroes. Now, you can go to, hold on. You can go to, you can pull up runaway ads. They got books on runaway ads. And if you go in and check to see if the county, how old counties had newspapers, and they ran ads in newspapers for runaways. And the reason that this would be important is because it would tell where he was sold from, or where his wife and children are. So when they would run away, they would go back and find their families. So this would give you a lead on where your ancestors might have come from before they were in this place. So you can buy books. They got books now on runaway ads. And this is that cotton they introduced to Madison County, Alabama. Because see, now tobacco is starting to die out. You see, that was the Indians' payback to America. They introduced America to tobacco. And what did that lead to? Yeah, 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 because they used to sniff it up their nose. It was called snuff. And they used to snuff it up their nose. Y'all might remember some of them old people used to have their snuff can. Ooh, they was horrible. Yeah, they had that Garrett 3-notch. Had a notch under the bottom of it. Strong, strong, and strongest. And this is the bank in Huntsville. This is where they kept slaves. The bank is on top. And down in the basement, like if you went bankrupt, they would confiscate your slaves and keep your slaves for resale. So this is the slots, where those slots are, all of those under the bottom there, that's where they kept you. Like if you ever passed one of them payday loan places, and you see all them cars in the back that they done confiscated. Well, that's the same concept, you know, because sometimes payday loan can be like, can kind of be like slavery. You'll never pay them off, you know. This is when William Brown Miller married an Indian girl, because those first white men married Indian women to get their land rights. So this is when they first started confiscating Indians' land. It married a woman, because see, the women couldn't enter in any legal documents, but you could marry a Indian woman. As a matter of fact, they got a movie out now. Yes, where they talking about marrying them Indian women to get their land rights so you could get that oil. Well, this is the same thing that they did back in the 1820s. So this is where Elizabeth Watty went to school to learn the ways of white women. So, you know, they would, again, white men would marry them to get those land rights. And this is St. Bartlett's Church in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the oldest organized congregation in Alabama. Yeah. This goes back to 1820. This is the one-room school. It's a big push now to save. They had a guy named Rosenwald who was the head of Sears and Roebuck. And Rosenwald paid for black folks, put money up for black folks to build schools all through the South. And they were called Rosenwald schools. It's a push now to save the Rosenwald schools. There's a few of them still left. So your grandparents, if your grandparents went to school in the South, in most cases, they went to a Rosenwald school. Yeah, so they're saving Rosenwald schools. This is when my family left Alabama, they went to Missouri, Jackson County, Missouri, a place called Independence, Missouri. That's the furthest point west, because Andrew Jackson is encouraging people to go west, and they were coming through Independence, Missouri to get slaves, tools. So my family walked from Independence to Dallas. That's the guy that brought my family to Dallas. That's William Brown Miller. It's a school over in Oak Cliff named for him. They were, you know, it's kind of hard to explain, but they were liberal for the time by the mere fact that they had been with this family, the Negroes stayed with this family from the 1700s, from 1730 up until the 1950s. Now, his son-in-law is Barry Miller. Barry Miller married his baby daughter. Her name was Minnie Miller. Mr. Miller, this guy, started the first school in Dallas for girls, because back when Dallas was founded, they say, well, why you want to send girls to school? They ain't gonna do nothing but have babies and cook. They don't need no education for that. Why you gonna send? So he started a school in his cabin. The cabin is down at Old City Park now. And that cabin became a school called Ursuline. Yes, the Miller's school. He taught the girls how to read, how to write. He brought in Miss Gray from Kentucky to teach his girls. He taught the girls how to shoot, how to ride a horse, astride the horse instead of side saddle like proper women rode. And he taught them how to dance. Yes. So you can imagine how they talked about his school. Teaching them girls how to read and write and shoot and dance? Oh, what kind of man is that? Well, his son, Barry Miller, is responsible for women getting a vote in the state of Texas. Because the women came to him and said, we want to vote. He said, y'all bring me 5,000 signatures of women who will register to vote, and they brought him 10,000. And his son-in-law, William Barry Miller, is responsible for the bluebonnet being the state flower. Yeah. So this is William Brown Miller. His cousin was a Supreme Court justice. He helped Lincoln write the Emancipation Proclamation. And this is Millimore. It's down at Old City Park. Yeah. Yeah. My ancestors built that house back in 1855. It was over, if y'all know Oak Cliff, it was over on the corner of Keast and Illinois, up Good Street Baptist Church is on that lot now, where Millimore it was built. And they took it apart like a puzzle and moved it down to Old City Park. This is Uncle Hade. Yeah, this is Hade Miller and Harrison Miller. When freedom came, they went to the freedom schools. The first schools was set up by a man named A.B. Norton to teach black folks how to read. And they left here, Uncle Harrison and Uncle Hade, and they went up to the Indian Territory, where the Creek Indians, see, the freedmen married the Creek Indian women to get those Indian women's land rights. They had problems with the Choctaws and some of the other ones, but the Creeks and the freedmen had a pretty good relationship. Him and his brother started the last Indian outbreak in America. When the white man came to the Indian Territory, because Andrew Jackson had forced all of the Indians west, and they ended up in Oklahoma, Indian Territory. Well, when the white man came in, it got the Indians to sign a document that says that they are going to share the land. Well, Uncle Harrison and Uncle Hade read that document to this Indian named Crazy Snake. And they said, Crazy Snake, we done read this document here, man. And white man speak with forked tongue. Say, it ain't what this document says, it's what this document does not say. Yes. And they getting ready to take all of y'all's land, man. Y'all need to go see the big white man. So Crazy Snake and his boys went to see President Roosevelt. And they went to the White House, and Roosevelt came out and looked at him and turned around and went back in his office and slammed the door. And so on the way out, they gave Crazy Snake and his boys a dose of the smallpox to take back to the reservation with them. You see, that germ warfare, right? And so if you can read the Smoked Meat Rebellion or the Battle of Crazy Snake. And that was the last Indian rebellion. And they said if it wasn't for them black folks, them black men, they didn't come no black men, coming up here to Oklahoma, these Indians wouldn't never know what was happening. And this is when freedom came, June 19th. And I want to dispel the rumor that Texas was not the last state to get the news that slaves were free. Y'all might have heard that. You know, Texas was the last state. Everybody was free, just the people in Texas. People in Kentucky, they got it in August. People in Carolina, they got it in November. And nobody was free. You know, they get the impression that Lincoln read the Emancipation Proclamation, and after he read it, we just boogaloo down Broadway, just free to go and do what we want to do. You see? The war, that was the middle of the war. Nobody was free when Lincoln read the Emancipation Proclamation. It got to Galveston June 19th. And when we got freedom, we got the right to vote. You can go pull, if you want to see who voted in your family, go look, get that 1867 voter registration. And it lists the men in your family that voted. And when you get the list, you get the index, and it's got a little star behind the black folks' names. So if whatever county you from, go look at the history of that county and look at the Texas voter index. And they'll tell you in 1867, the first men in your family to vote. Now, we got a chance to vote and got a chance to go to school, but the most important thing we got out of freedom was the freedom to juke. Ooh, child. Yes. But see, juking was outlawed. You just couldn't juke anywhere. You couldn't just walk down the street and go to juking, you see. Well, what happened, a man named Glass invented a little box that you could put money in. And as long as you put money in that box, you could what? You could juke. You see, y'all don't know how many of us is here because of the light of a jukebox. Yes, right. He leaned over on that jukebox and said, Daddy, you got a little money for the jukebox? Oh, girl, yeah. Where you work, Daddy? You work for the county? Yes, there's a mini romance been built around there. The light of that jukebox. And that's Henry. That's my daddy's. His daddy was William Brown Miller slave. We own the land that's called 5 Mile. If y'all know where Highland Hills is, across the street out there, there's 5 Mile. That was his daddy's farm. He got to be very wealthy. And these are his daughters. These are the women I was telling you earlier that I used to listen to about their work. That was Rosie, Lucy, Maggie, Roxy, and Sally. got another one named Jackie, but Jackie was kind of on the.
We all have one of those.
Huh?
We all have one of those.
Well, we had more than one. Yeah. Well, I bet it, when your granddad and great granddaddy came to the city, they didn't stay at no Holiday Inn. They stayed with another family. And they would tell people, put some extra potatoes on the wagon, because, these kids up here got to eat there. So, put a little extra on there. And the women knew it. You had a wife in the country and had my little side piece in the city. Yeah. When you go to them films and stuff, and you see somebody and you say, "Ooh, that look like Uncle Willie." They say, "Be quiet. Won't talk about that." Yeah, y'all know that happened. And this is my family. We on the porch down at Millimore. So I love to take, I think I got, 5 minutes? Questions about tracing families. Anybody started? Nobody got an interest on connecting? Yes, ma'am.
My mother has started for our family.
What's the family last name?
Last name is Taylor. We're not from,
Where they from?
they're in Mississippi,
What part?
north, right outside of Tupelo.
Go in and look at the Bank of New Orleans records. Because a lot of the slaves, New Orleans had was like the largest port. And a lot of them slaves that came into Mississippi came out of that Bank of New Orleans. It's a book by Grace Menlo Hall, where she has gone in and translated all of them names and a lot of them bank records. Look at that Bank of New Orleans for your Mississippi, for those Mississippi records. And also get that 1870 census. That's the first census that listed black folks by name and age. So you can go there and go back. In 1870, if they're 50, that means they were born in 1820. So then that gives you to go back to 18. Then you go to the 1860 census and see the white folks with the same names, and if they're from the same counties, that gives you your former owner's family. Any more?
Yes, so if your family's out of New Orleans, which mine is,
Yeah.
it would be from there, right?
Yeah. Look at that Bank of New Orleans. Also, look at them in Louisiana. Look at them parish, them Catholic church.
I'm Catholic.
Look at those marriage records, because the Catholics kept good marriages of baptisms, because everybody had to, see, that comes from the Louisiana black codes. When the slaves got freed, Mississippi freed their slaves in 1985. Louisiana. 1885. No. Louisiana and Mississippi were supposed to get compensated for freeing the loss of slaves. And the United States government was supposed to pay them for the loss of slaves. And the government never paid them, so they never signed the document to free their slaves. Go in there and read the Louisiana black codes. They came around to all other plantations in Louisiana and told everybody that they had to be Catholic. And what they did is they tattooed you with that fleur de lis, like the saints wear on their helmet, tattooed you with that. And if they came back and you had that tattoo on you, that brand on you, and you wasn't in the Catholic Church, they would resell you. So go in and read the Louisiana black codes, Mississippi black codes. That's when they put us back into another form of slavery. I don't know if Louisiana freed their slaves yet, but Mississippi freed theirs in 1985. Yes.
My family's outside of Richmond, Virginia, then Amelia County, Virginia. I started looking, and I ran into slave boy and slave girl. I went back as far as 1870 for my grandfather's last name, and then after that, all I found was Negro boy and Negro girl.
Yeah, we're very fortunate here, is that the Dallas Public Library on the 8th floor has one of the top 10 genealogy collections in America. And you got to go in and read the history of the county. Make genealogy, bring people alive, because we using their parts. You know, we didn't make ourselves, we all made up out of borrowed parts. And see, on Judgment Day, I don't want to be walking around heaven asking who you are. I want them to look at me and say, boy, say, you told our story. You brought us to life. Come on. You know, I want to be going around saying, who you? Who you? You look like, yes. So come to that 8th floor of the Dallas Public Library. They got some great people up there. And I mean, that's your county money. It's your money to pay for that library. And if you don't use it, because see, right now, the state of Texas is on a move to take all black history off the shelves. Right this very moment, they got people going around the libraries, school libraries, pulling Essence off the shelves, pulling Black Enterprise off the shelves. They got a school out in Carrollton named George Dawson, named after Mr. Dawson, the old man, 100 years old, went back to school to learn how to read. And he wrote a book. And he got a school name for him, and they went to the school name for him to pull the book that he read. Oh, they say how stupid that is. So they pulling all of that off the shelves, man. And if we don't say something about it, yeah, Elvis Presley is gonna get credit for inventing the blues, and the Beatles gonna get credit for inventing rock and roll. Yeah. Yes, John.
There is a Rosenwald School here in Dallas. It's in Joppa. The Rosenwald School, and he talks about, there's a book, Julius Rosenwald, and you know, you say Sears and Roebuck like these young folks even know who Sears and Roebuck is. That's Amazon. That's the new Amazon. Yeah. but there's a Rosenwald School in Joppa. Mm-hmm. We're in the process of trying to restore it now. And by the way, Rosenwald collaborated with Booker T. Washington.
Yes.
It's 4,970 schools, but there's a book.
Yes, on Rosenwald School. So y'all check with people. Oh, before I shut down, be sure you save your family's pictures. We love pictures. Outside of human life, pet life, the number 3 thing we save is pictures. People run back in the burning houses to get their pictures. And depending on how him and her get along, if he sleep, she run back in there and get her pictures. And on her way out, she said, wake up, the house on fire, the house on fire. Because after storms, you don't ever hear people say, I lost my silverware, I lost my place. They say what? Lost my picture. Well, you know, people love pictures so well, they have them drawn on them. Yeah, but they carry this picture with them everywhere they go. Yeah, you got a picture on you. Huh? So save the pictures. Write on the backs of them who the people are, where they are, and look into the picture. Don't just look at the picture. Look at the clothes they're wearing. It will determine whether they lived in cold weather states or warm weather states. If they're standing by a car, look at see if the license plate on the car tell you what year the picture was made. So look at the pictures, make copies. Everybody got these pocket televisions now. Make a copy of your pictures and share them. And also organize family reunions. We have a massive family reunion. Organize family reunions, bring people together. If 5 people show up, you have a good time. And if 500 show up, have a good time. Don't get discouraged, because the kin folks that tell you they're gonna be something, they're gonna tell you they're gonna bring a hog and won't bring a slice of bacon. When people tell you they're gonna help, and don't get mad at them, don't get discouraged. It's a magic that happens at family reunions. Please, organize family reunions so your kids don't grow up and marry their cousins. Yes,
Let's give it up for Donald Payton. You know, Don didn't even get into it. You know, he talked about, the Caruth and all of that. Do you realize most of downtown was owned by African Americans? When you look at that Capitol building, the whole 9 yards. I mean, Don and I have been doing this, for decades. So we just want to thank you. March in my office, 22nd or 26th, right on the other side of the triple underpass was where Uncle Sam, Cato, and Pat were hung. The abolitionists he talked about earlier, they were hung. That fire, that Miss O'Leary's cow and all of that stuff they talk about in Chicago.
Y'all know Miss O'Leary's cow? Huh? Y'all know Miss O'Leary's cow?
Yeah. Well, you see, that was a Chicago story. But as he said, Dallas was burned to the ground by Africans in the institutional slavery revolt. And so we're going to dedicate that park on the other side of the triple underpass on either March the 22nd, 26th. Okay, yeah. Okay, it's on Tuesday. Anyway, Uncle Sam, Cato, and Pat, it's right over there. And right now, the city of Dallas is preparing that park for dedication.
Good.
But it was about, and he didn't even get to talk about, y'all see Overton Road, Overton Mill. One of those individuals who were lynched was working on the Overton Mill. And so it's a lot of history, and I want to thank them because, for the last few decades between that, like you said, that 8th floor, it's running back and forth. Those of us who love history, Donald Payton is considered to be that. Jason, thank you very much. Jason Remain, diversity, equity, inclusion. Thank you for bringing Don. And there are some other programs that are going to be part of this African American history. So again, thank you all for taking your time and coming and look up your history. You may not know it. Killers of the Flower Moon. Have y'all seen? How many have seen it? Oh, okay. So y'all can start making that connection. Anyway, Don, thank you so much. Jason, can't say enough.
Thank you, Mr. Payton. Once again, before y'all head out.
Picture?
Oh, yeah, a picture.
No, with you and Mr. Payton. No, you too. Go ahead, Mitch. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, yes, I just wanted to mention it is Mardi Gras today, so we have some king cake right outside, and also there's parking validations for those of you that need parking validations right there next to the king cake, so take some on your way out.
And he talked about New Orleans. Did somebody say they were from New Orleans here?
Oh, I'm not from New Orleans, my family.
Okay, the largest African slave plantation in the country.